Hello, my name is Ariel Coleman, and I will be introducing the informal debate of technology threatening the future of special education in applied behavioral analysis. In this debate, we have Amy acting as our summarizer and Bonnie acting as our illustrator. In addition to Brittany acting as our researcher and Rebecca and Beverly acting as our filters to clarify information and address any questions that may potentially arise. In this debate, you may hear terminology such as special education, telehealth, assistive technology services, instructional technology, and universal design, or UDO. I will first acknowledge the differences between special education and ABA and elaborate on terminology you may hear. Special education is the practice of education for individuals with disabilities, which include multiple disabilities, intellectual disabilities, deaf, blind, emotional distress, autism, and more, to individualize education for students according to their needs in a school setting. Applied behavioral analysis is the practice that focuses on behavior principles. In addition, it is scientific and evidence-based and known for servicing individuals with autism strictly. ABA is used to teach academics, life skills, communication skills, and more, and can be implemented in a school, home, or clinical setting. Special education has three components in which technology can be broken down into. The first being assistive technology, instructional technology, and universal design for learning UDO. Assistive technology can be broken down into two subgroups. The first one being assistive technology device, which is the device and or product on the device that the student may use. Assistive technology services, which are the services that a student receives to use the device and the product device effectively. Instructional technology is the common technology used for teaching and learning within the schools. So the general laptops, desktops, iPads, smartboards is collectively used and individualized. UDO can be described as a form of technology that is scientifically based and focuses on improving learning for all students. It is a framework that is broken down into three components itself. What of learning, which is the recognition network, how of learning, which is the strategic network, and the why of learning, the effective network. Examples of that could be text-to-speech, audiobooks, digital assignments, and simplistic goals of lessons. In addition, we have telehealth, which is used as a telecommunications of information, a technology platform to provide services in health and behavioral health. Telehealth services include assessments, diagnose, interventions, and more. With technology being more accessible and affordable, technology has found its way in serving many sectors. And today we will discuss the effectiveness of technology servicing those receiving special education in ABA. I now turn it to Amy.
As mentioned in the introduction, during this informal debate, we will be going over how technology can affect the future of special education and applied behavior analysis. We would go more in depth and detail of the different platforms that were mentioned. At the same time, we would discuss the effectiveness of those options. We want to introduce the different pros and cons that need to be considered for this informal debate. When talking about the pros to be considered, there are four of them. Number one is time and cost efficient. Technology is time efficient by allowing for connections to easily be made, becoming part of everyone's life. It allows for different services to be provided, such as access to health, intervention, education. At the same time, is large cost savings. With the use of technology, it provides different types of services that would be mentioned later on. Number two, technology is a resource for remote areas. This means that technology enables for us to reach populations that are hard to reach, either because they're in remote areas or in rare conditions that in-person services might not be able to be provided. Number three, the use of technology as a result can help increase in communication as well as decrease problem behaviors. Technology provides different resources to assist individuals in improving different skills as communication, independence, and leisure. There's also a decrease of problem behavior by providing access to proactive strategies. Number four, it provides an opportunity for clients to feel immersed in their home before going to a public setting. This is especially appealing for individuals with autism, which might have a difficult time being with peers for a long time. In this setting, they're able to practice skills at home before going into an outside environment. At the same time, it is important to consider the cons that were going to be presented on this debate. Number one, funding for technology is difficult to obtain and it's expensive. Unfortunately, this is a resource that those can afford it, they could have it. When it comes to schools and districts, this might not be a priority within their budget because of the expenses. Number two, the use of technology is not universally applied. The controversy in special education and applied behavior analysis is that it's not universal, leading to miscommunication and a lack in effectiveness. Number three, technology can be unreliable. As we know, this could affect different environments and different settings in which affects the technological devices. Number four, there's lack of evidence and the research is limited. Although there's research that has been conducted when we talk about technology, we're going to come to learn that when it comes in the field of applied behavior analysis, the research is really limited. Next, we will discuss how the pros and cons are relatable to nowadays.
Okay, as Amy mentioned, there are several pros and cons regarding the use of education in the delivery of behavior analytics services. I'm going to discuss how each of these points can be made relatable to our day-to-day service delivery. In this first slide, it's an image from Sarah Tina from Buzz Industry in 2016. You can see a group of health professionals gathered around a computer. This can depict the efficiency that the use of technology brings to the health industry. Physicians can schedule appointments with clients with ease, as well as allow patients and clients the ease of speaking with their care providers without having to leave the comfort of their home. In terms of utilizing this for ABA service delivery, clients that live in remote regions can use technology to schedule appointments with their therapists and to have appointments without having to worry about the additional funds for travel, or if they're very far away from their service provider, even the cost of hotel rooms. In the next picture, on the other side of this, the con can be the cost of technology in itself. This screenshot from the Apple website shows the price of a single iPad. At almost $2,000 per iPad, it can be almost impossible for some families who rely on this technology to be able to afford it. For schools, as mentioned, funding may not be available for the purchase of multiple devices. To make this relatable to a day-to-day situation, one of my former learners at my school required a personal hotspot. Without access to the internet at home, he would regularly engage in very violent, aggressive behaviors that would sometimes result in his mother having to go to the ER due to injuries. Without the hotspot, these behaviors continued. Their funding was requested from the school district, and it took 6 months for the initial request to even be approved, and an additional 3 months on top of that for the student to even get the hotspot in order to see a decrease in behaviors. Moving on from that, our next pro is that technology is a resource for rural communities. In this particular image from an article regarding the advantages of distance learning from Wallace, it depicts what a typical interaction between individuals within a classroom could look like. Both would have virtual avatars to represent themselves within the classroom and would utilize the microphone and chat features in the classroom in order to communicate with one another. On the flip side of this, the con with technology is that it's not always universal or reliable. Unfortunately, when technology is being used as a means of communication for learners, individuals on that student's multidisciplinary team may not have been trained on the communication specific programming, or may not feel comfortable running programming if they're unfamiliar with the technology that's being used. For example, a speech language pathologist may be working with a student on using Proloquo to say "excuse me" in order to gain his or her communications partner's attention. If another staff is not trained on this program or does not know how to fluently use Proloquo to go, they may forego this teaching experience and teach them another more convenient way to communicate that need for that person to move or gain their attention. And by doing that, it would create confusion for the learner and would then almost make that newly taught skill mute, and it may even result in the regression in progress. Moving on to our next pro, the increase of communication with the use of technology and the decrease of behaviors. There is a very wide variety of technologies available to individuals who have difficulties communicating. Anything from buzzers to speech generating apps that can fit the individual needs of each person can be used to help individuals communicate. Something as simple as teaching someone to push a green button for yes or a red button for no, or even just pushing a button that says go if they don't want someone in their way, can be monumentous for students who have communication deficits. Giving an individual access to these technologies broadens their world to new opportunities to strengthen their relationships with family, peers, providers, etc. It can help them communicate their wants and needs. It can help to promote self-advocacy, and it can help them navigate social environments more effectively. On the flip side of this, for the con, technology can be incredibly unreliable. Phones can die, screens can crack, devices can get lost, and Wi-Fi connection isn't available anywhere. An example of this, for a current student of mine relies on an iPad. He uses Proloquo to go to communicate, and another student was bringing down a van seat and it landed on top of the iPad, shattering the screen, and the student wasn't able to access his words for a month. And now, with everything happening with COVID-19, that student, before we get back to school, will have gone months without accessing his words and will probably need to be retaught how to use them to communicate all over again, which is incredibly unfortunate and a huge downside to using technology. Moving on to our final pro of creating an immersion in social environments. Virtual classrooms, such as the one in this image created by Western Illinois University, allow students the opportunity to build social skills and appropriate social communication in a virtual environment prior to moving into a real-life classroom setting. This virtual reality allows students to practice social skills in an environment that doesn't have the additional stress factors of actual physical peers being in their space. It allows them to easily terminate aversive situations, and it allows them to also safely navigate aversive situations. It could, if a social situation in the virtual classroom were to create behaviors, it leads to a safer space where there are less people that could be potentially injured by aggressive behavior, or it leaves a safer escape for that student to get out without engaging in self-injurious behaviors. Live chat windows allow students to communicate with teachers, as well as utilizing microphones for computers, on computers for those who don't have strong typing skills. Various social scenarios play out, and it allows them a broad variety of social scenarios without having to actually deal with a real social scenario. And lastly, our final con is the limited research and evidence that is available on this topic. Despite it being very widely used throughout the world, since it is still relatively new to the world of ABA, there has not really been an opportunity for a lot of research to be done on this. However, and this will be brought up a couple more times, I think, throughout our debate, with everything happening in the world right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, we are seeing a huge increase in the number of ABA agencies that are using technological platforms to deliver services. So I estimate that within the next couple of years, we'll probably see a good bit of research coming out of a rather unfortunate circumstance that's forcing our field to really rely on technology a lot more. And now I am going to turn things over to our researcher, Brittany.
Thanks, Bonnie. All right, after reviewing the research, technology has been demonstrated to be cost and time efficient. An article by Tomlinson et al., 2018, training individuals to implement behavior analytic procedures via telehealth supports the use of technology for training individuals to implement ABA techniques which include assessments, teaching procedures, and specific interventions. The use of technology can be time and cost efficient, not only for clients, but also providers. The results of the review provided initial support for the use of telehealth as a way to effectively train individuals. In some cases, training via telehealth was found to produce comparable results to traditional. Telehealth training was rated as highly socially valid and in preliminary analysis resulted in significant financial savings for organizations and reduced travel burdens for trainees. Providing training via telehealth may therefore be a promising method of supporting behavioral change for clients and increasing access to behavioral support. Another pro that was mentioned is that technology is a vast resource for rural areas. Steichter et al. 2014 published an article titled iSocial, Delivering the Social Competence Intervention for Adolescents in a 3D Virtual Learning Environment for Youth with High Functioning Autism. And so iSocial is a 3D virtual learning environment which is designed to increase access to evidence-based practices which target social competence for youth in schools. Schools are increasingly using distance education to provide access to important specialized curriculum. A total of 11 students across 3 school districts participated. This study was the first of its kind to explore the effects of a full curriculum delivered via 3D virtual learning as distance education to students across multiple cohorts and schools. Findings for learning outcomes and social validity suggest that iSocial approach has promise for benefits to youth, families, and schools. NEPO 2017, the use of technology to improve education, focuses on the universal design for learning and highlights the advantages of technology to improve education. NEPO discusses the history and current regulations related to special education and the use of technology. He concludes that the use of technology in classrooms could reduce the need for self-contained special education classrooms because students would have the support they need with their devices. He also says that the technology-based curriculum can embed immediate feedback and additional prompts, which promotes the implementation of the principles of universal design learning. The findings from this discussion and review of history show that technology brings tremendous benefits not only in the general education classroom, but also for students with disabilities. There are many benefits to technology and the future of special education and ABA, as I just described, but there's also limitations and threats to explore. A study by Lewis, 1998, titled Assistive Technology and Learning Disabilities, Today's Realities and Tomorrow's Promises, explores many forms of technology and their potential problems. 2 technologies developed for persons with physical impairments are voice input and word prediction programs. However, although the cost of these systems has decreased markedly in recent years, it still remains high. And also, the systems must be trained to recognize the user's voice so that spoken words are equated with their written counterparts. Lewis also writes that in a time of declining fiscal resources for education, assistive technology for students with disabilities may not be a high priority budget item for schools and districts. Assistive technology for persons with disabilities holds promise, but like all futures, is uncertain. Gavin et al. 2020, Play Therapist Attitudes Toward Using Technology in the Playroom, surveyed 40 registered play therapists to address their attitudes and experiences using technology in play therapy. The qualitative nature of the study allowed participants to provide open-ended responses to the survey questions. Play therapists shared their experiences, level of training, and thoughts and feelings. 5 themes emerged from their responses: client development, therapeutic relationship, clinical impact, play therapy essence, and counselor attitude, knowledge, and skills. The overall findings of this study revealed that participants had mixed thoughts and feelings about the benefits of including technology in the playroom, and that more research is needed on the topic. And finally, Salin et al. 2018, Experiences of an Internet-Based Support Coaching Model for Adolescents and Young Adults with ADHD and ASD, a qualitative study, explores how adolescent and young adults with ADHD, ASD, or both experienced taking part in an internet-based support and coaching intervention. 16 participants with ASD, ADHD, or both participated in an 8-week internet-based support and coaching model. Some disadvantages were voiced, including incomplete personal interaction and failing technology. Server malfunction without notification was confusing for the participants, and it led to some chat sessions being canceled, shorter than planned, or carried out with difficulty. Overall, more research is needed to support the use of technology in special education and ABA settings. Next, Beverly will be discussing the ethical codes.
Thanks, Brittany. 3 ethical codes that were discussed were, the first one was Ethical Code 2.09, Treatment, Intervention, Efficiency. BCBAs should be capable of ethically defending their decision to use or to not use technology as a therapeutic intervention. The second ethical code was 4.06, Describing Conditions for Behavior Change Program Success. BCBAs should be able to prove that under what conditions that technology is most effective and it can be transferable to other settings. The last ethical code was 4.07, Environmental Conditions that interfere with implementation. BCBAs should be capable of defending their decisions to use technology devices as a therapeutic intervention in the event that technology devices are not suitable for every environment. Now that we have discussed the ethical codes, Beck and I are going to discuss some questions about our informal debate on technology. The first question from the professor was, what type of training might a behavior analyst require to deliver telehealth services so that a delivery of services is still within the scope of practice?
So learning and being familiar with different communication styles increases your intercultural skills. Technology in education can open up doors to new experiences, new discoveries, and new ways of learning and collaborating. Behavior analysts must receive training from a professional, meaning someone who maintains competency or a license or certificate. The behavior analyst must prove to be competent in using virtual programs such as telehealth before virtually implementing any therapy. Training may be done online using a module, in person using role playing, and through direct observation. Observation is done by a trained professional, and it's done while the analyst is using the program that they're currently being trained on.
Correct, Beck. ABA should ensure that their staff are adequately trained on the use of the technology used for telehealth and the steps necessary to protect the client's rights. So for the second question, telehealth opens up doors to service delivery and consultation across great distances, which opens up the probability of international consultation. How might one determine boundaries for practice and or needed training if a behavior analyst is not familiar with the cultural context, family context, etc.?
Well, there are many personalized systems of instruction, or PSI, that can be used to train a group of professionals. One way to determine whether the analyst is competent in the subject area or if further training is needed is to create a training module. For example, the Relias modules. They consist of a pretest, the training that includes various checkpoints to make sure that the analyst is understanding as they go throughout the module, and a post-test. If the analyst doesn't pass the final test, they have to take it again until they pass, which proves that they're competent in the subject area.
Great point, Beck. How might this be more difficult to understand via telehealth than in-person service delivery?
Well, as with any online course, application of learned skills might be difficult because the analyst hasn't had a chance to practice the skills that they learned in real time or in real situations. The supervisor might also find it difficult to observe the analyst using the program.
So how has technology been beneficial during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Various ABA clinics have shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. During this time, clients who attend these clinics that have been shut down aren't able to generalize learned social skills or acquire imperative social skills. If they're not given the tools to maintain or generalize the acquired skills or to learn new social skills for an extended period of time, they might even begin to regress. Technological devices offer a medium to overcome these challenges through virtual ABA programs such as telehealth.
Yes, I do agree that telehealth has been beneficial during this COVID-19 pandemic. So what has been difficult?
Well, insurance companies are notorious for being difficult to deal with. I know they are already hesitant to reimburse for ABA services that have been delivered. One of the many reasons that registered behavior technicians or behavior analysts write session notes detailing every ABA session is to consistently prove the client's need for ABA therapy. If the client isn't receiving services for an extended period of time, insurances might determine that therapy is not necessary and might stop reimbursing for ABA services. If ABA therapy is delivered through technological means during a time like this, there won't be a hiatus or an interim between the delivery of therapeutic services. And it might aid in proving that therapeutic services are a necessity for our clients to maintain skills or to progress in imperative skills for daily living, social interaction, and to learn appropriate communication. Another difficulty is that clients who are higher functioning might be able to attend to a virtual session without assistance. But clients who are considered lower functioning, they might not understand how to use the technological device. They might not be accustomed to using the device for therapeutic services. And they might not have the attention span to attend to the device for the duration of the session without a physically present aid. The last point that has been difficult is that parents or legal guardians are largely responsible for ensuring that the services are delivered. When a session is scheduled, they need to be reliable enough to make sure that their client is present for the session, they're attending to the materials or acting in an appropriate manner. Since the therapist isn't physically in the environment that the client is in, it would be wonderful to think that every client's guardian is able to do this, but it's not practical or realistic to think that way. Parents need to work on keeping track of their kids throughout the duration of the session. Parents also need to be instructed on how to implement behavior plans. And behavior plans constitute a multitude of procedures and interventions. For example, if the client begins engaging in maladaptive behaviors to gain attention, the parent needs to ignore these behaviors. And they also need to know that what they need to do next to follow the behavior plan and to redirect that client if that's part of the behavior plan. Parents also need to be properly trained on crisis intervention procedures when a client begins to engage in self-injurious behaviors.
Great points there, Beck. When you are saying that technology is too expensive, does this consider options like PECS, so Picture Exchange Communication System?
Since the term technology can be applied to a broad scope of mediums, there's going to be pros and cons which apply to each medium. So we wanted to narrow down the scope of this debate to technological devices such as phones, computers, or tablets, and the digital or virtual programs that these devices offer. So we could have a more focused and detailed discussion regarding the pros and cons. The form of technology we chose is also extremely applicable to current events. Right now, there's ABA clinics that are considering using technological devices to deliver ABA services in light of the CDC's and local government's suggestions to practice social distancing. And we thought this would be a perfect time to talk about the pros and cons of using technological devices for therapeutic purposes.
Correct. So in the very last question that we have is, are there equal opportunities to access technology for individuals who qualify for special education versus individuals who qualify for both special education and ABA services?
Well, the short answer is yes. There are different opportunities for individuals who qualify for special education, individuals who qualify for ABA services, and individuals who qualify for both. The opportunities are going to be different, but the opportunities are available for anyone who falls into each of these categories or all of these categories. There are scholarships, there's grants, loans, and programs which aid in purchasing or renting technological devices. You can also visit the Autism Speaks website to learn more information about financial assistance programs that are in your state. As stated in this slide, there's a plethora of opportunities. They might not be the same sponsors or grants or scholarships, but the opportunities are equal. So in conclusion, there's a lack of research regarding both pros and cons of the use of technological devices. There are numerous pros and cons to list, but there's little research to prove whether the pros outweigh the cons or vice versa. And this is most likely because the use of technological devices, because there's so many, and the programs that are used are so different, and they all present their own pros and cons particular to an individual, the setting, and the cost. Ultimately, the use of technological devices as a means of therapeutic intervention can be both beneficial and problematic. It just depends on the client's or the individual's current needs and their pre-existing skills. Hopefully there's going to be more research, evidence-based research on this topic in the near future. So that concludes this debate. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoyed this informal debate.